The African Christian Democratic Party says fighting corruption is a key priority. The party launched its election manifesto in Kuils River in Cape Town yesterday. The ACDP says lifestyle audits could be a solution. Joining us from our Cape Town studio to unpack the party's electoral promises is the ACDP's MP, Steve Swart. Good afternoon or good morning to you, Steve. So you are promising to fight corruption. You want lifestyle audits for those at SOEs and in government. You also want to improve education. You want to improve healthcare. These are all the usual promises in South Africa. What gives the ACDP the edge?
Yes, and good morning to you, Tembakiza, and to your viewers. Well, the ACDP is an unashamedly Christian party. We stand for freedom of religion, and so our value system attracts people from across the board. And so, yes, those are issues that do face our nation, that many other parties are facing. But we choose in this nation, as we are 80% Christian, we believe that the believers in this nation can come together and face these giants. You mentioned one or two of them. But as our Chief Justice spoke about the public protector, and you referred earlier to the public protector with the Eskom inquiry, we would see ourselves as a biblical David facing these giants, some of which you have mentioned. And it is crucial for us to understand that our nation is at its crossroads, and the path we are now going to choose is very important. Are we going to come together as South Africans? Are we going to meet the divisions that are facing us? And that is why we as the ACDP, we stand for unite, build and grow for the future as believers in this nation, to come together and face with godly solutions. And we believe that it is better to place your trust in God than place your trust in man, and that we have got those answers and solutions as we come together.
Let's talk about believers then, Steve, because you say 80% of South Africans are Christian, but someone would then turn that stat around and use it on you to say that even in the current government there are Christians, and our prisons are quite in fact filled with people who subscribe to Christianity. So why would your brand of Christianity be the right one to lead the government?
No, absolutely, and we would fully agree with you that there are many Christians across the board. But what we are saying is, do those parties actually stand for those values that we espouse? And when you, in your introduction, you spoke about the corruption and you spoke about the lifestyle audits that we are calling for, those are some of the implementation processes and mechanisms that we would like to introduce. So you had a lengthy discussion about the Eskom inquiry, and that is where the ACDP played a fundamental role in exposing the corruption and bringing truth. You might have heard in the past, even with the Nkandla inquiry, where I spoke in Parliament that the truth will set you free. And yes, that challenged Christians across the board in other parties to say, yes, let us stand for these values. Let us stand for freedom of religion like the ACDP does. But we have a great need. And so if you have a look at the pathway that we are going to choose now, we're at the crossroads. Are we going to continue this corruption, high crime, load shedding, or are we going to follow a path of prosperity, of peace? Are we going to move away from the racial divide and move towards national reconciliation in our nation? So when in Parliament the EFF leader stood up and said it is time for justice and restitution on the land issue, I agree. I stood up and said I can agree with the issue of justice and restitution, but we as believers have got a ministry of reconciliation. You can never say reconciliation of the Nelson Mandela era is past, and we are commanded to love one another and to be peacemakers. And so those values are what we espouse. But at the same time, what attracts people to the ACDP and why we're experiencing this tremendous growth, 20% in a by-election, 13, 15%, is that people are tired of the racial politics in our nation, and that they want to see bringing together a nationhood. And so we say, let's move away from this race-based politics in our nation.
Okay.
Let us go back to those initial calls. Yes, yes.
Let's talk about that, because it appears...
And let us unite around these...
Forgive me for cutting you off there, Steve, because it appears the believers don't believe much in the ACDP, because when you look at your performance in 2014, you had 0.57% of the vote. That was down from your 0.81% in 2009. In 2004, you were even higher. You had 1.6%. So the believers clearly don't believe in the ACDP. Why is that?
No, you make a valid point. But let us move a step forward to where we are at this stage, and let us look at our by-election results that we are achieving. Let us look at the level of despair amongst people, the level of disillusionment of the voters with the ANC, with the DA. And when you start looking at our results recently in by-elections, we've had a dramatic improvement. And that is an indication of the disillusionment of the voters, and it gives us great hope. 20% in by-election, 13, 15%. And so, yes, we fully acknowledge what you say in the past, but this is a new day. This is a new dawn. People are looking for something new and fresh, and we believe as the ACDP that we do present that message.
But also in this new dawn, people are calling for the decriminalization of sex work. People are saying they want women, as is guaranteed in our Constitution, to be able to choose whether to keep babies until full term or to abort. People are saying we need to protect the rights of LGBTIQ people. And these, given that you are a party that bases its ethos in religion, seem to go against what you stand for.
Those would be certain people in society, and they are fully entitled to those views. But on the other hand, there is a majority of believers in this nation that do not adhere to those values. And that is where there's this dimension and there's this tension. I see it in Parliament on a day-to-day basis when believers of other parties come to me and say, Steve, you stand for what we believe in, but we can't say it in our own party. And that is very important to bear in mind from the major party, when I've been in Parliament for 20 years. And so we see that. Yes, you're correct. There are people that hold to those views. But I would say that when you actually look at it, the majority of people would actually hold to our views. And it is interesting. In the run-up to the 2014 elections, a survey was done across people were invited to respond to certain questions. And as a result of their responses on certain issues, this survey indicated that up to 50% of those that had been interviewed should be voting for the ACDP because we hold to their values. Correctly, they are not, but there's great hope for us in the future as we espouse values that would resonate with the majority of South Africans, given that 80% of South Africans would say they are Christian.
Very quickly, let's talk about your great hope. What is your election target? How well do you think you're going to do? You did get 0.57% in 2014. How are you going to prove that? What's your target?
Well, we are focused on improving dramatically. And what we would like to see, however that takes place, remember, we're already co-governing at a local government level. So we're talking about governance. How that exactly interprets is something, and how that is, it depends on the voters, it depends on the church coming out and voting for values, voting for hope for the future. And so we are looking, here in the Western Cape, we're having tremendous growth. Our aim is to be government in the Western Cape and possibly across the nation. Yes, it depends on what that takes the form of. As I say already, we are in co-governance at local government level. There is tremendous potential for the ACDP based on these issues that we raise in our manifesto. We say there are giants facing our nation. We say that it takes a David, a biblical David, to stand up against that. We've got a proven track record in Parliament. And when people say the ACDP is too small, let me remind viewers that it was our colleague Sherilyn Dudley that changed a law relating to bring in paternity leave in Parliament. So we see that happening. So let us see that going forward, that myself, I've been involved in the Eskom inquiry. I've been, as a lawyer, been exposing corruption. I'm grateful for that opportunity. But just think, if we were to espouse a value and elect leaders in our nation based on ancient values, and this is set out for us. Let me just share this. If we were to select capable men from people, men who fear God, trustworthy men who hate dishonest gain, that is such a wonderful value for us. And so we're excited about the Western Cape. We're growing dramatically. We can't stay ahead of all the people that are coming on board the ACDP. So we'd implore your viewers to come alongside us. We respect a constitutional democracy, but we bring hope for the future.
Steve Swartz, you've certainly given us our sermon on this Sunday. Thank you so much for your time today.